So welcome, our beloved and brilliant colleague Smitha. We so appreciate your consistent, visionary leadership and solidarity. And as always at Setsi, we begin all things by giving thanks to our creator, by giving thanks and acknowledging all the original stewards of the various lands we're on. We give thanks and acknowledge all our ancestors, all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We give thanks to all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So, Smitha, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers and share a bit about your remarkable work?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Victor. It's been wonderful getting to know you over the years and partnering with the Setsi team. I'm excited to be here. I'm Smitha Das, use she, her pronouns, and I work at World Education Services. I'm based in the Washington, D.C. area, so technically US based, but I would say I'm a adopted member of the Canadian impact investing community and have really enjoyed developing relationships with folks in that arena.
Incredible. Thank you so much. And I think you're
Yeah.
more than adopted. You're definitely part of the family. That is
I
for sure.
appreciate that.
Yeah. So my next question, what's inspiring you right now? What has you curious or what's keeping you up at nights?
There's so much in the world to kind of keep you up at night, particularly with in the US, there's an election coming up. There's a lot of kind of global events that are heavy on our hearts. But I think what I keep coming back to is the human spirit and the kind of resilience that we all have and commitment for change in a better world. I was just talking with a colleague last week, and actually they've done this exercise with 80 plus people in their lives where they have them close their eyes and imagine what their life looks like at 85, right? When they're looking back. And overarchingly, she was sharing 100% of the people she's been talking to have been sharing this more positive, optimistic vision of the future. They're with their family, they're in nature, they feel connection, and the world is a more inclusive, equitable, regenerative world. And I find that so grounding that even in this world, which feels so heavy and dark at times, that when you actually close your eyes and think about the vision for the future, it really is a positive vision. And I have faith that if we all have that vision, we can get there. And that's really what keeps me grounded.
That's absolutely beautiful. It's such a inspiring practice. We had a session this morning with our colleague Indy Johar from Dark Matter Labs, and he spoke about radical abundance in the future. And I think so aligns with that message of a future of radical abundance. That's beautiful. Thank you. So my next question, what challenges and barriers are you facing in your work? And how are you and your colleagues? I'm approaching some of these challenges and barriers.
So how we're facing a lot right now in regards to our work. I mean, I work at World Education Services, which has a mission to support particularly newcomers and migrants coming to the US and Canada and think about reducing the barriers to global mobility. So some of the challenges we're seeing in the market are lacks of tailored products and services supporting the communities we care about. We're also seeing just the remnants of structural racism in the water and how that has hindered individuals from achieving their full potential. And so when we look at it from an investment perspective, we're always looking at how we can increase access to opportunity, wealth, power, and justice. And we've been making investments across these four themes over the last 3 years and building a portfolio of 25 wonderful partners, including Setsi, to really reimagine what that roadmap of the American or Canadian dream can look like for newcomers. So happy to share more about what our investment portfolio looks like and thesis, but it's been a really exciting kind of journey to.
That's incredible. And I love the way your team communicates and connects partners. It's literally a community of practice that's cross borders, international, and remarkable. I get those fulsome emails from our colleague Marina, and it's just incredible to see the way that you're investing and the way your investment thesis holds true to the values and the sentiments that are obvious at your fund. So the next question is, do you have a set of key priorities right now in your work or anything that you'd like to amplify to our listeners and viewers?
Yeah, we're in a really exciting moment at Wes where we started about 3 years ago with a 5% carve out of our corpus, WES is structured as a nonprofit social enterprise, and we're 100% funded through our internal products and services, right? So we don't have any government or philanthropic dollars to the nonprofit. It's all self-funded in the really classic social enterprise model. And where we started was about 3 years ago. We started with a carve out to say, how can we invest some of our surpluses back into the mission through impact investments? And those were really catalytic in nature, which we define as patient, risk tolerant, and flexible. And now that we have this portfolio of 25 partners, we've really been able to bring the team and the board along the learning curve. And apologies if you can hear my dog in the background. But basically, the learning curve for the board and the team was that, wow, we've been able to really build up this capacity and portfolio so quickly. How can we actually commit more capital to this strategy? And that's where we have been able to actually go through the process with our board, which culminated in November of 2023 with a new investment policy statement and a commitment to 100% mission alignment across all of WES's assets. So this takes us orders of magnitude larger in regards to assets that we can steward in a mission aligned way. And it really helps us demonstrate that mission-driven organizations, whether they're foundations, family offices, nonprofits, or otherwise, can actually steward all of their resources and achieve both the financial, business, and impact goals of the organization in the same way.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for your candor, transparency, and the visionary leadership of your team. It's phenomenal. So my next question, how do you feel about the future of impact investing in Canada and the US or internationally? Are you hopeful? Are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic? How are you feeling?
Yeah. Well, clearly you're getting from my answers that I'm overarchingly an optimistic, glass half full person. So, I mean, I see a lot of potential, particularly in Canada. I think when I even started this work in Canada and went up the learning curve, joined the Canadian impact investing community, if you will, and my first kind of reactions was that it's quite small. Folks know each other. It's quite nascent, and there's a lot of kind of learning orientation to say, okay, how can we demonstrate more types of investment approaches and really take this to the mainstream? I've been seeing so much activity. The creation, of course, over the last couple of years of the Social Finance Fund is a great indication of this, of taking this to a more larger scale. But seeing also greater coordination. Victor, you're very much in this kind of world of like, how do we connect dots and people and ideas? But I'm seeing more and more coordination of that. I want to definitely shout out several other folks like Narinder, who's leading New Power Labs, and we've helped start that. Adam Spence at SVX and how he's helped us get along our learning curve. Christy Fairholm Mater, right, at Thrive, and they just created with Tracy Robertson and the spring team, this really wonderful convening a couple of weeks ago on blended finance. And so I'm seeing these kind of a lot of basically seeds being planted. And it's been so exciting to see a lot of the engagement and more funds. When we first started our work, actually in Canada, we did more grant making, field building grants to develop some of the infrastructure, particularly for investment readiness, to kind of improve investment readiness for organizations that are particularly supporting migrants and refugees and newcomers. And now we're seeing actually some of the fruits of that labor and just more activity in the investment ecosystem and marketplace. And we're seeing more deals, which is fantastic. So we're looking actually this year to do quite a bit more deals in Canada. And then I would say kind of globally and within the US, where I see a lot of room to grow is frankly really thinking about how folks even define impact within impact investing. I would say historically, it's been very much defined as what you're investing in, say education or healthcare, climate, these particular themes that could be impact oriented. And then particularly after 2020, there's been more of an orientation to define impact also as the who. How can we shift more capital to those who have been historically overlooked and underinvested in? But still, often we are using the same tools and the how has remained the same. And so I've been on this journey within Wes and within our work and across the field to say, how do we actually really interrogate the how, from how we define the investment strategy, who's at the table, and having a more of a participatory process in decision making, to how we support our partners in a really trust-based and long-term way. And so that's really the work that I see as the next frontier for this space, is interrogating the how and reimagining it, because you fundamentally can't use the same tools and expect a different result. And that's potentially what we've been doing in the impact investing space to date.
I couldn't agree more. And I think some of those remarkable leaders that you mentioned, Narinder at New Power Labs, Adam, I believe that the very first New Power Lab panel was myself, Narinder, and Adam. This is
Yeah, I'm sure.
a long time
Yeah.
ago.
Three of our partners for many years now at
Yeah,
Wes.
and Tracy and Keith Ippo for
Yes.
Spin Activator and that blended finance format. It was remarkable. I was able to support on the first day with an incredible colleague, Ani Patent Power. So once again, as you said, it's small, it's nascent, it's emerging, but I think that there's so many actors doing remarkable things and stakeholders and leaders. And as these thought leaders and practitioners come together, I think we do need to find new ways and means to not really dismantle, but find ways and means to innovate using new approaches that and mitigating groupthink, which I think has been the challenge in the ecosystem for a very long time. It's been people that have similar lived experiences, social locations, trying to solve problems. But now it's a much, from my perspective, much more just and diverse, and I won't say equitable just yet, but much more diverse space. So once again, and I think that's a lot of that has to do with people like yourself in investing in groups and folks that you believe in. So once again, I applaud your leadership. So my second,
I mean, I think oh yeah, I'll let you answer your question, but I do agree that it starts with changing the face of finance, and that's even how we at Wes think about our team. Right, we have a very diverse team of the 400 plus people that work at Wes, and we're really looking to hire folks who have relevant lived, labored, and learned experiences. It's something we're actively looking for. And then as we look at the portfolio, we also think that those who are closest to the work and the problems are best positioned to develop those solutions. And so we're often looking at those proximate leaders and who have the relevant lived experience. And that is a big part of how we diligence and assess partners and try to, again, shift power in addition to shifting capital.
I couldn't agree more. My grandmother always said, those who feel it know it best, you know? So that those proximate leaders are so important. So my second last question, what is your ultimate goal? And what does success look like and feel like to you and your colleagues?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been doing actually a lot of self-thinking lately around that kind of purpose and where I kind of fit, because now that I'm helping oversee and steer all of Wes's resources, I'm starting to be in some rooms where there's folks that are on one side of the spectrum asking fundamental questions. What is ESG? What is impact investing? What's the risk around DEI? Given the backlash, particularly in the United States. So I'm in some conversations where I'm kind of calling people in who have been in the more of the traditional markets historically and are just on their learning curve. I'm in other conversations with folks who are really at the frontier of developing a more regenerative economy through work around shared ownership and power shifting and participatory investing, right? Really at the kind of pioneers of what the next version of our economy and version of capitalism could look like. And so I find myself often being that bridge builder, if you will, and code switching and translating on a Zoom to Zoom basis. And I'm realizing that sometimes that can feel lonely because you're not really fitting in perfectly in one group or the other. But there's also power in ability to translate and call people in. And so I've found myself often having one foot in the present with the folks of, there's, at least in the US, there's 87 trillion in US assets under management. That capital isn't going anywhere. The markets are still moving on a daily basis. How do we tilt those markets to be more equitable and to be? So I'm kind of in that incremental movement in the present, but then in the future, have one foot in the future where I'm thinking about, okay, what could a future version of capitalism or economy look like that is more just and regenerative rather than extractive? And so that's where I find myself often kind of straddling those two worlds and wanting to lean into the role of being a bit of a bridge builder and translator among them. So that's really where I probably see more, you'll probably see more of me trying to lean into that role in the next few years, particularly as the scope of my work at WES now has grown quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think the scope of your work at Wes has grown primarily because of all those seeds that you've planted. And now that things are like a beautiful garden's forming in terms of a creative practice and that portfolio of initiatives. But more importantly, I really think that conceptually, when you look at the ecosystem, it's very like we're exponentially learning. So like the ecosystem looks very different than it did 12 months ago. So it's almost like we're writing strategies in pencil, because if you write in pen, things are moving so fast, new actors, new ideas, new initiatives, that it makes no sense. So I'm saying all to say that once again, I hold space, and I appreciate that role that you have to play in terms of knowledge translation, mobilization, and I wouldn't even have to call it code switching because you're one of the most authentic people I know. I think definitely you definitely have to play that role of translation, having to lean in and support different groups and meeting folks where they're at. And that's a remarkable talent and skill to have. So once again, I applaud your leadership as always, my friend. So my last question, do you have any closing thoughts or calls to action for our listeners and our viewers?
Well, this has been such a delightful conversation. So thank you, Victor, again for welcoming me into this space, into this community. I've found so much warmth and wisdom from you as we've navigated the Canadian market. So just again, want to really thank you and your whole team for bringing us along that learning curve. And I think when I think back on how we've been able to move just within 3 years from a 5% carve out to 100%, and really just completely shifting the culture at WES to redefine risk a bit, and also the way that we think about the fiduciary duty and stewardship of our resources. I think a lot of it is by learning by doing. We have this culture of learning by doing, and that may be our secret kind of approach to moving our capital so quickly and shifting hearts and minds within our board. So my encouragement to those listening would be to also just roll up sleeves and start doing a deal or two. In my first 6 months, we did 4 deals, and that was, pretty fast to build up the infrastructure, but it was a great forcing function to build out processes rather than kind of build the strategy, build the process, then execute. Using the execution and the deals as a forcing function to build out and refine strategy and process has been our iterative approach. And we did the same thing with the investment policy statement. Rather than kind of sitting in the strategy world, we use the investment policy statement structure as a forcing function to have conversations with our board around how do we define risk? How do we think about the return expectations for the organization? What do we mean by mission alignment, and really codifying those decisions in an IPS that is also an iterative live document we will revisiting over time, but that ultimately is the governing document for all of our resources at WES and gives us the mandate to now rotate the full portfolio. So I think my biggest learning over the last few years and over a decade in this space is just kind of do it and start and bring that learning orientation, because to your point, Victor, things are moving very fast. Language is changing quickly. And to stay up to date and to continue to contribute, you have to just kind of be in the work. And that is really what drives me every day.
I love it. Thank you so much for investing this time with us and just being a remarkable force within the ecosystem. Since you've come, you've been a remarkable resource of information, knowledge, of capital, but not just that, ideas and innovation. So once again, I appreciate your visionary leadership, your candor, authenticity, and all that you do for so many, Smitha. We really appreciate
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. Excited to continue the work.
Indeed,
Thanks,
as
Victor.
always at Setsi, we close the way we began by giving thanks to our creator, by giving thanks to our ancestors, by giving thanks to all the original stewards of the various lands we're on, and we give thanks to all our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Thank you so much, Smitha.
Thank you so much, Victor.